It is the first model introduced in the 2025 Volume 2 rerun of the Full Metal Panic collaboration, and the fourth model introduced in the collab as a whole. It is FMP03 Kaname Angel, with a mostly new kit of Cleanse, Shake, Bomb Hammer, Biped Legs, and a leg ability of Stand Form, which reduces the power of incoming attacks when attacked by incoming enemies. Now, the Full Metal Panic collaboration has definitely made a lot of waves in the Medarot S over the course of its history, especially with a lot of very powerful and rather equally as iconic mechs across the series as a whole. But with the second run of the collaboration introducing some new characters and some new skills, this is most certainly bound to shake things up with another very iconic character, that of Kaname Chidori, officially joining the fray as well. Cleanse on the head part is a brand new support skill being introduced into the game, which very simply is two previously known support skills merged into one. That also is the unification of Conceal and Stat Cleanse in one fell swoop. Conceal will boost all allies' evade by 50% as long as the effect remains active, and in addition will also allow you to completely render null and void any scatter, AoE, or pierce effects of incoming attacks for your next attack until the effect dispels. This makes it very, very easy to prevent things from being able to damage multiple parts at once, or give you a higher likelihood of being able to dodge or graze in order to keep your damage as low as possible. Plus, this also means that unless you're already being targeted, it makes it a lot harder for the enemy to also lay any clean hits against you. The Stat Cleanse half of Cleanse is just as simple as it reads. It applies a Stat Cleanse effect to self and all allies that, once applied, will remove any negative ailments applied currently to the team as a whole, and also render them immune to them for a certain amount of hits. This means that if the enemy is trying to make use of any potential negative ailments against you, Melt, Deathlock, Lock, Freeze, Thunder, Tornado, the Stat Cleanse half of this makes it extremely easy to be able to keep those off of your tail just long enough that you can either retaliate and take care of it quickly, or if you can replenish it quickly, it also makes it a lot easier to be able to keep negative ailments off your tail entirely. Shake on the right arm is another brand new skill being introduced into the game, which, much like Cleanse, is basically two currently existing skills merged into one. Shake applies Confusion, which, upon applied to the enemy target, prevents them from being able to choose their next action or their next target for the next 3 turns or until attacked. This means that if they're using an attack type skill, there is a very real chance they may possibly use that against their own allies and make life easier for you in the long run with a free hit. Or if it's a support or healing skill of any kind, there is a chance that they can also apply it, or a piece of it, to your side of the field as well for a free buff without even having to do anything. Now again, this also applies and lasts until the enemy has been attacked, or until 3 turns has passed, whichever comes sooner. Shake also applies the blow away effect when attacking the target, which is what gives it its much more aggressive combat orientation. Blow away when attacking the target gives you a chance to push the enemy away from the command line and back to start. And this will give Kaname Angel a very solid hand in crowd control to a degree, as this allows her either to stall enemy heat phases if she's able to successfully outrun them, or even potentially perpetuate it longer if it's able to if they time it correctly. However, as a crowd control type of attack, it is also worth mentioning that blow away when mistimed can also accidentally accelerate an enemy's cooldown phase, so a little bit of caution is advised if you're planning to use Shake in this way. Bomb Hammer on the left arm, and a skill we've only seen one other time currently, and that is with the Bang Bravern collaboration back a number of months ago. But simply explained, it is simply a gunpowder hammer skill. So that means as a gunpowder skill, it does have the sure hit property added to it when fully raised, and the AoE effect, which means it will damage all parts equally and spread the damage across them, means it'll be spreading the damage and making it easier to damage multiple things at once. However, Hammer type attacks are also fairly solid on the effect that, thanks to Silent Leader being implemented into the game and now a standard mechanic, it does make it a whole lot easier to be able to flush out enemy leaders or find out who is the one you want to target or who's the one that's the most dangerous on the team. However, it is also worth noting that as a a gunpowder attribute skill, it does also mean that it can be nullified by anyone that is using Gunpowder Guard. Not that you'll see it too terribly often, but it is still worth noting all the same as something to keep in mind when using this skill. Biped legs means that Kaname Angel will have very solid coverage across most terrains with some fairly solid terrain compatibility, and her stats across the board are pretty solid too. With a base mobility of 920, she's definitely off to a very solid start in the speed department, so without any terrain compatibility or meta rodder bonus, she's already going to have some pretty solid mobility on her side. An evade of 1573 is really nice, as this means she can dodge or graze fairly well without anything really getting in her way. A melee resist of 1449 is nice, as this means she can hold her own up close and personal very, very well, and a shoot resist of 1001 means she can hold her own just fairly well as well at long range when taking pot shots from the enemy sniper. Not necessarily as impressive as a damage reduction as her melee resist, but still enough that she can hold her own fairly well. In the armor department, she's also fairly deceptively bulky as well, with a head armor of just shy of 3600, right arm at almost 4100, left arm at over 3400, and legs at just over 3500. Means that, like I said, she's got some pretty solid bulk, which works very well to her advantage. And that's also not even counting on stand form coming into play, which will reduce the incoming power of attacks when attacked by enemies. So unlike Detect or even Fortress, which simply is just a damage reduction overall, Stand Form is a direct damage reduction against the enemy in question. So that means if they are going to hit you with a very powerfully charged CG-reliant attack, Stand Form allows you to negate at least 30 to 32% of that, of the power itself, not the final damage, but the power when being attacked by this particular enemy. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I honestly have to rate Kaname Angel a pretty solid, I'd say middle-of-the-road 6.5 out of 10. She has a lot of very solid skills that can be put to extremely good use in a lot of different ways, and her synergy is not too bad. It's rather strange given the ailment and crowd control on one hand and the gunpowder attribute hammer on the other, but if used correctly, she can synergize this fairly solidly. And Cleanse, also having Stat Cleanse on there, makes it extremely viable in any way you choose to use it, as a way to keep ailments off your tail. As mixed parts, though, I do have to rate her just a little bit higher at a 7.5 out of 10, given that even though you can use Kaname Angel as a pure set fairly solidly, she's still kind of all over the place, and having only one use of Cleanse with just some middling heat and cool skills means you're probably not going to be getting anywhere fast when using this, but when applied is also fantastic. However, being able to use Bomb Hammer as well for Silent Leader with Gunpowder attribute, Shake with the Blowaway for crowd control, or even if you choose to use Cleanse for that double buff you get. But realistically, the legs are definitely going to be a very solid bonus here as well, with Stand Form, fairly solid numbers across the board, and even with a heavy support of 1, it's a very good leg you can use just about anywhere on female teams you choose to use it on.